The most advanced artificial intelligence ever built can write a poem about love in less than a second. But according to St. Thomas Aquinas, it has never understood a single word. If you are lying awake tonight, in a world that tells you machines can think and create and even feel, and if some quiet part of you wonders whether that is actually true, then tonight we are going to sit with a question that this 13th century philosopher answered with a clarity that no modern scientist has been able to refute. What is the one thing that separates your mind from any machine? Let your breathing slow. Let the rain settle over you. The answer is more beautiful than you expect. Tonight, we are going to walk through the thought of one of the most brilliant minds in the history of Western civilization, a man who lived 800 years ago and who saw something about the human soul that our most advanced technology still cannot replicate or even approximate. This is not a lecture, it is a quiet conversation in the dark. You do not need to remember any of it. Just listen and rest. Around the year 1225, in a castle near the town of Roccasecca, in what is now southern Italy, a boy was born into a family of minor nobility. His name was Thomas, and his family had plans for him. According to the Dominican scholar James Weishaupt, in his biography Friar Thomas d'Aquino, the family intended Thomas to become the abbot of the great Benedictine monastery at Monte Cassino. It would have been a position of considerable influence and considerable comfort, but Thomas had other intentions. As a young man, he chose instead to enter the Dominican order, a community of mendicant friars who owned nothing, who begged for their bread, and who devoted their lives to preaching and to study. His family was so opposed to this decision that, as Weishaupt recounts, they imprisoned him in a family fortress for roughly a year, hoping he would change his mind. He did not change his mind. Once free, Thomas travelled north to study under the great Albert, known as Albertus Magnus, Albert the Great, one of the most learned men in medieval Europe. It was Albert who recognized something extraordinary in this quiet, heavy-set young friar whom his classmates had mocked by calling him the dumb ox. Albert is said to have replied that the bellowing of this ox would one day be heard throughout the world, and it was. Beginning around 1265, Thomas began composing what would become his masterwork, the Summa Theologiae, a vast, systematic exploration of the entirety of Christian theology. Its scope is almost incomprehensible. It addresses the nature of God, the structure of the human soul, the meaning of virtue, the purpose of law, the mechanics of grace. He worked on it for nearly a decade, until 1274, when, following a mystical experience during Mass, he set down his pen and never wrote again. He told his companion that everything he had written seemed to him like straw compared to what had been revealed to him. He died shortly afterward, at the age of 49. He was later declared a doctor of the Church and given the title Doctor Angelicus, the angelic doctor. Tonight, we are not going to try to survey the whole of his thought. We are going to focus on just one question, a question that Thomas answered in a few careful articles, and that the Catholic Church returned to in a remarkable document published on his very feast day in January of 2025. The question is this: what does it mean to understand? In the Summa Theologiae, in the section known as the Secunda Secundae, question 49, Article 5, Thomas Aquinas draws a distinction that may be the most important idea you hear tonight. He distinguishes between two modes of intellectual activity. He calls them intellectus, and ratio, and then he defines them with this careful sentence. The term intellectus is inferred from the inward grasp of the truth, while the name reason is taken from the inquisitive and discursive process. Let that settle for a moment. Ratio is the mode of thinking that moves step by step. It proceeds from one proposition to the next. It gathers evidence, weighs alternatives, draws conclusions. It is analytical, sequential, discursive. If you have ever worked through a math problem, or followed a logical argument, or compared the pros and cons of a decision, you have been operating in the mode of ratio. Intellectus is something different. The word comes from the Latin intus legere, which means to read within. It refers to the mind's capacity, not to calculate, but to see, not to process information, but to grasp meaning directly, immediately, from the inside. Thomas is very precise about this. He says that intellectus and ratio are not two separate powers. They are two modes of the same intellectual soul. Ratio is the journey. Intellectus is the arrival. Ratio is the act of searching. Intellectus is the moment of understanding. Think of it this way. Imagine you are watching a candle burning in a dark room. You could analyze the candle. You could measure the temperature of the flame, calculate the rate at which the wax is consumed, describe the wavelength of the light. All of that is ratio. It is valuable. It is precise. It is necessary. But there is another moment, the moment when you simply look at the flame, and something within you recognizes its beauty. You do not calculate that beauty. You do not deduce it from a series of premises. You simply see it. You grasp it from within. That is intellectus. Now, here is where this ancient distinction becomes extraordinarily relevant to the world you are living in right now. On January 28th, 2025, the feast day of St. Thomas Aquinas, the Vatican published a document titled Antiqua et Nova, which means ancient and new. It was issued jointly by the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith and the Dicastery for Culture and Education, and it addresses directly the relationship between artificial intelligence and human intelligence. The document makes a remarkable argument. It draws on the very distinction that Thomas articulated 8 centuries ago. And it says this: artificial intelligence excels at tasks associated with ratio. It can perform statistical computation. It can recognize patterns across vast data sets. It can process information step by step with extraordinary speed and precision. In the domain of discursive reasoning, of sequential analysis, machines are now, in many measurable respects, faster and more accurate than any human being. But, the document continues, artificial intelligence lacks intellectus. It lacks the capacity for the inward grasp of truth. It cannot understand meaning. It cannot experience empathy. It has no moral agency. It does not grasp the truth of reality from within. Antiqua et Nova warns explicitly against what it calls the fallacious equation of artificial intelligence with human intelligence. The document insists that human intelligence is not simply a biological version of what a computer does. It is something qualitatively different. It is rooted in embodiment, in the unity of body and soul, in lived experience, in social relationships, in moral freedom. A machine processes symbols. A human mind understands them. A machine can identify the word sorrow in 1,000,000 documents. A human being knows what sorrow feels like because she has wept. And this is not a small difference. This is the difference between ratio and intellectus, between calculation and comprehension, between processing and presence. Thomas understood this in the 13th century. He understood that the agent intellect, as he describes it in the Prima Pars, question 79 of the Summa, is the power of the soul that abstracts universal truths from the raw material of sensory experience, and he insists that this power is immaterial. It does not depend on any bodily organ. It is the light by which the mind sees, not with the eyes of the body, but with the eyes of the soul. No machine has this light. No algorithm possesses it. No neural network, however vast, however intricate, will ever wake up one morning and understand what it is doing. And so, if you are listening to this tonight, and you have ever worried, even for a moment, that a machine might one day think the way you think, you can let that worry go. You are not a machine that happens to be biological. You are a soul that happens to be embodied, and the difference is infinite. There is a second thing that separates you from any machine, and Thomas addresses it in the Prima Secundae, question 13 of the Summa. It is the act of choice, what Thomas calls Electio. Thomas teaches that free choice arises from the rational soul's capacity to apprehend the universal good, because your intellect can grasp not just this particular good thing or that particular good thing, but the idea of goodness itself. Your will is not locked to any single object. You can choose, and this choosing is not the same thing as what a machine does when it selects an output. A machine optimizes. It receives an objective, a target, a function to maximize or minimize, and it selects the path that best satisfies that function. This can appear very much like choosing. The output may even be unpredictable and surprising, but it is not choice, because choice, as Thomas understands it, requires something a machine does not have. It requires the capacity to know why you are choosing. It requires the ability to weigh not just outcomes, but meanings, not just probabilities, but values. Antiqua et Nova affirms this point. The Vatican document states clearly that human intelligence is inseparable from moral freedom. A human being can look at two options, understand that one of them will bring personal comfort and the other will bring personal suffering, and freely choose the suffering because it is good, because it serves another person, because it is right. No machine does this. No machine can do this, not because the technology is insufficient, but because the act of self-sacrifice requires a self. Think about that for a moment. Let it rest in you. You have chosen difficult things in your life. You have chosen to forgive when forgiveness cost you something. You have chosen to stay when leaving would have been easier. You have chosen to love when love was not returned. None of those choices can be reduced to an optimization function. None of them can be explained by pattern recognition or statistical probability. They came from something deeper. They came from your will, freely, deliberately, choosing the good, and that freedom, Thomas tells us, is a reflection of the divine image within you. You choose because you are made in the image of a God who chooses, a God who freely creates, who freely redeems, who freely loves. A machine is made in the image of its programmer. A human being is made in the image of God, and those are not the same thing. There is a passage in the Summa Theologiae that has always seemed to me one of the most quietly beautiful things Thomas ever wrote. It is found in the Prima Secundae, question 26, article 4, and in it, Thomas distinguishes between two kinds of love. The first he calls amor concupiscentiae, the love of desire. This is the love by which we love something because it is good for us. We desire it, we want it for what it gives us. The second, he calls amor amicitiae, the love of friendship. This is the love by which we love someone, not for what they give us, but for who they are. We will their good for their own sake. And Thomas writes, with his characteristic precision, a friend is, properly speaking, one to whom we wish good, while we are said to desire what we wish for ourselves. This distinction is profound, and it illuminates something essential about the difference between a human heart and a machine. A machine can be programmed to simulate amor concupiscentiae, the love of desire. It can be designed to seek, to acquire, to optimize toward an object, to pursue a goal with relentless efficiency. In fact, that is precisely what many algorithms do. They desire outcomes, they pursue targets, they maximize reward functions, but amor amicitiae, the love of friendship, the love that wills the good of another for the other's own sake, this love requires something no machine possesses. It requires a person. Antiqua et Nova, the Vatican's document, makes this point with great care. It says that human intelligence is not something isolated. It is inherently relational. It develops in community, in family, in friendship, in the encounter between one living soul and another. AI, the document notes, is a tool, not a person, and a tool cannot be your friend. It can assist you, it can inform you, it can even comfort you in a limited and functional way, but it cannot know you, it cannot suffer with you, it cannot choose to stay when staying is difficult, and there is one expression of love that reveals this difference more clearly than any other: forgiveness. Forgiveness is the most radical act of amor amicitiae. It is the decision to will the good of another person who has harmed you. It is not efficient, it is not rational, in the narrow, calculating sense of that word. It contradicts every optimization function, every cost-benefit analysis, every algorithm of self-interest, and yet it is the deepest thing a human being can do. You have forgiven someone, or perhaps you are struggling to forgive someone. Right now, that struggle, that weight, that slow, painful turning of the heart toward mercy, that is proof that you are not a machine. Machines do not forgive because they are never truly wronged. They have no interior life to wound and no freedom of will with which to release the wound. You do, and that capacity is more precious than any technology ever built. We are going to slow down now. Let the thoughts come more gently, more quietly. There are two more gifts that Thomas describes, two things that confirm the depth of your inner life, two things no machine will ever possess. The first is the experience of beauty in the prima pars. Question 39, Article 8. Thomas offers three conditions for beauty. He says that something is beautiful when it possesses integritas, integrity, or wholeness, proportio, proportion, or harmony, and claritas, clarity, or radiance. And then he writes a phrase that has echoed through 8 centuries of thought: pulchra dicuntur quae visa placent. Beautiful things are those which please when seen, not when measured, not when analyzed, not when computed, when seen by a soul that can receive them. You have had this experience. You have stood before something beautiful, a sunset, a face, a piece of music, a line of poetry, and something within you responded, not with a calculation, but with a kind of quiet astonishment. That astonishment, that involuntary opening of the soul before the radiance of being, that is something a machine cannot do. A machine can identify patterns that humans find beautiful. It can generate images that follow the mathematical rules of symmetry and proportion, but it does not see them. It does not experience the claritas, the radiance, the light shining through form, because beauty, for Thomas, is not a property of objects alone. It is a meeting between a beautiful thing and a soul that can receive it. And where there is no soul, there is no meeting, there is only data. The second gift is conscience. In the Prima Pars, question 79, Article 13, Thomas describes conscientia. He says it is a judgment of practical reason. It is the act by which the mind applies its knowledge of the good to a specific, concrete situation and renders a verdict. This is right, or this is wrong. I should do this, or I should not. This is not a mere rule-following. It is not a matter of checking an action against a list of prohibitions. Conscience, as Thomas understands it, involves the whole person, the intellect, grasping the principle of the good, the will, inclined toward or away from it, the emotions, the memory, the lived experience of a particular human life. A machine can be given rules. It can be programmed with ethical guidelines. It can be trained to flag content that violates certain policies. But it does not know that something is wrong. It does not feel the weight of a moral decision. It does not lie awake at night, wondering whether it did the right thing. You do. You have lain awake, perhaps tonight, turning over some question of right and wrong, some unresolved burden on your conscience, and that very restlessness, that inability to let it go, is the activity of conscientia. It is your soul doing its sacred work of seeking the truth about what is good. Let that comfort you. The very fact that you care whether you have lived rightly is proof of something no machine will ever possess, an interior life ordered toward the good, capable of recognizing beauty and answerable to truth. And now we come to the last thing, the deepest thing, and perhaps the simplest. In the Secunda Secundae, question 29, Thomas writes about peace, and he says something that at first sounds strange. He says that peace is not merely the absence of conflict. Peace is the union of all your desires in one supreme object. When your heart desires many things, and those desires pull against one another, you are restless, you are divided. But when all of your desires come to rest in one thing, one ultimate good that satisfies everything, then you are at peace. And Thomas knew what that one thing was. 16 centuries before Thomas, another great saint had said it more simply and more beautifully than anyone. In the very first chapter of his Confessions, St. Augustine wrote, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you." A machine does not have a restless heart, and so a machine will never know peace. It will never experience the quiet settling of the soul into the arms of its Creator. It will never know what it is to stop striving and simply be held. But you can know this. You can know this tonight. Everything we have spoken of, intellectus, the inward grasp of truth, free choice, the love of friendship, beauty, conscience, all of these are faculties of a soul that was made for God. They are not random, they are not accidental, they are signs that you were created by an intelligence that is not artificial, an intelligence that is infinite, and personal and loving, and that intelligence knows you, not the way a machine knows data, but the way a friend knows a friend, the way a father knows a child. So let yourself rest now. There is nothing more you need to figure out tonight. The questions can wait. The worries can wait. The restless turning of the mind can slow. You are not a machine. You are a soul. You are known. You are loved, and the one who loves you is holding you right now in this quiet darkness. Let your eyes close. Let your breathing slow. You are safe. You are held. Rest. Rest.